I would like to make sure that I make one thing abundantly clear, that I claim Africa. I've heard some people talk about why don't black folks living here, African folks living here, black Indians living here go back to Africa. And the funny part about all of that was we talk about people with lower IQ and ignorance and everything else, but it shows their lack of knowledge about history. Black people and indigenous people have been there so long, they were made to forget their history. But let's talk about another history. Let's talk about people that claim things that's not theirs. Let's talk about some of the world's greatest claim jumpers. See, most of the time when we hear the word claim jumper, we picture the Old West. See, I used to like cowboys and stuff until I found out that most of those cowboys that we like so much, they hated people that looked like me. But guess what? I still didn't mind watching them on TV because they're entertainers. They're not my president or anything like that. No matter if your name was Ronald Reagan or whatever. You never was nothing to me. See, we imagine that claim jumper, the picture of Old West, it was a man that found a gold mine, a lonely prospector, and someone waiting in the shadows to steal what another person discovered. You see, that's the real claim jumper. A claim jumper did not do the hard work, you see? And I want you to understand that I'm pointing in the direction that is relevant today. He did not search for the gold. He did not endure the hardship. He simply arrived after someone else had created the opportunity and declared, this belongs to me now. Who does that sound like? Most of us believe claim jumping ended with the frontier. But that was just the middle part. It didn't even start in the frontier. But what if it didn't? What if claim jumping simply became more sophisticated? What if instead of stealing a gold mine, people learned to steal nations, histories, resources, credit, labor, even identity? And that's identity theft has been happening for so long, they just applied it to credit and money. The greatest claim jumping in history has often involved more than land. It has involved the power to decide who owns the story. History teaches us that throughout the centuries, powerful kingdoms, empires, nations expanded by conquering territories, controlling trade routes, extracting resources, and establishing new political systems. Colonialization took different forms in different places, but one common feature was that control frequently shifted from local populations to outside powers. Sometimes the transfer occurred through military conquest, sometimes through treaties, sometimes through economic pressure, sometimes through laws written by those who held power. And that wasn't even held power in the country they were stealing from. When the dust settled, maps changed, governments changed, languages changed, the name of rivers, mountains, and cities changed. And eventually, the next generation grew up believing that the new history had always been the story. And let me tell you something. For all you who think you're so great, why don't you go ask your parents, your grandparents, and their grandparents who are the biggest thieves on this earth? And why did they lie to you? That is one of history's greatest powers, not merely changing land, changing memory. Think about it. If someone controls your land, they possess your resources. If someone controls your government, they influence your laws. But if someone controls your history, they influence how future generations understand themselves and the world around them. And I think that's one of the worst things that have happened to African people here, black people here, foundational black people here. People of color don't even understand themselves or the world around them no more. History has shown us many examples where the contributions of indigenous people, enslaved people, immigrants, women, scientists, inventors, ordinary laborers have been overlooked or minimized while others receive greater recognition. Scholars continue to revisit these narratives, adding voices that were previously excluded. You see, it was the intelligent European who actually told the biggest lies, changed the textbooks, changed history, made up things like Egyptology. That is why history matters, because history is not simply about yesterday, it is about shaping tomorrow. The metaphor of claim jumper reaches beyond the past. See, today, we still ask difficult questions. Who benefits from natural resources, receives the credit for innovation, profits from labor, owns data created by billions of people online, decides whose voices are amplified and whose are forgotten? These are not simple questions, nor do they have simple answers. Around the world, debates continue over intellectual property, cultural heritage, land rights, economic inequality, environmental stewardship, and access to opportunity. These issues differ from one from another, but they all raise a common concern. Who creates value and who ultimately controls it? We all know who does, but you know what? When you hide behind the curtain, somebody has to say, and pull the curtain so you can see who actually runs this country. Sometimes wealth is concentrated while communities remain impoverished. Sometimes traditional knowledge is commercialized without recognition or benefit sharing. Sometimes workers generate extraordinary profits while receiving only a small portion of the value they helped create. So what about slavery? You never got no value. Sometimes people spend their lives building institutions only to see others receive the recognition, building the White House, but you can't stay in it. These situations are not identical, but they remind us that questions of ownership, fairness, and power remain relevant. Perhaps the most dangerous claim jumping of all is not the theft of land, it is the theft of truth. Because once the truth becomes negotiable, justice becomes difficult to achieve. If citizens cannot distinguish between evidence and misinformation, between verified history and mythology, then every generation must begin again trying to separate fact from fiction. That is why free inquiry matters. That is why education matters. That is why archives, scholarship, journalism, and honest debate matters. A healthy society is not one that refuses to examine its past. It is one that has the courage to do so honestly, even when the findings are uncomfortable. That's why this system of things is unhealthy. Looking critically at history is not about assigning collective guilt to people living today, nor is it about denying the progress humanity has made. It is about recognizing complexity. It is about acknowledging both achievements and injustices. It is about understanding that no civilization, nation, or people are beyond examination. If we fail to ask difficult questions, we surrender our future to those who answer them for us. So let us become students rather than spectators. Let us read deeply, compare sources, challenge assumptions, and let us honor those stories who were forgotten without diminishing the contribution of others. And let us remember this: a true society does not fear the truth, it seeks it. A just society does not rewrite history to protect power, it studies history so that power remains accountable. So, the truth is scary because power needs the lie to survive, and for those people to stay in power.